We live in a time and place where many of us as believers are very comfortable with the New Testament, very comfortable with who Christ is and the sacrifice that He made, and understanding how that changes our lives, not only for today but for eternity. But we're a little bit perhaps overwhelmed by the Old Testament, or maybe we are even frightened of it. So one of the most exciting parts of writing Transcending Mysteries was being able to delve into the Old Testament, many stories that I didn't know, and many that I'd heard mostly as a kid growing up, having my mom read Bible stories to me. And seeing those stories in a new light, and seeing the God of the Old Testament in a different light, and feeling now like I can excitedly say to others, wow, you know, the God of the Old Testament is worth knowing, and exploring the Old Testament is a worthwhile project. I hope readers will gain a love of the Old Testament as they read Transcending Mysteries, much like we did, and a passion to pursue knowing more of it, and maybe a passion also to understand more about the God of the Old Testament, more about the relationship that He had with His people, the Israelites, and hopefully their way of thinking about that part of the Bible will maybe change from one of, you know, sort of fear or discomfort to one of you know, wanting to embrace the mystery, wanting to be inspired by its pages, wanting to know more.
You know, that what draws us into relationship with each other is the same thing that draws us into relationship with God. It's that there's always new things to discover. There's always something else to know. And there's always a bit of risk involved in that. You know, there's trust, elements of surrender and trust. That's more than understanding everything by the end, or in this discovery, we also gain a new element of trust and surrender that maybe doesn't feel quite so scary, but actually feels quite secure and loving.
If I had to tell people one thing about Transcending Mysteries, I would say that Andrew and I, as we wrote this book, we pored over Scripture. We listened carefully to the stories that others who we know and love have been through, and we carefully told those stories, and we told the stories from our own hearts and lives. And I think our stories are compelling, and I think the wonderful things that we discovered about God in the process of telling Old Testament stories are also very compelling.
Well, the whole heartbeat behind why we wanted to write Transcending Mysteries, and then really it remained the heartbeat throughout the writing and even editing process, and everything surrounding this book has been discovery. Really allowing God, to be who He is, to not try to control that, to not try to manipulate that, to not try to shape that into some sort of God that will benefit me in this way or that way, but instead, who is He because I love Him and I trust Him.
I guess I would have to say the Old Testament came alive for me in a new way, and so I would invite you, you know, to pick up Transcending Mysteries and, you know, come on this journey with us, and you know, hopefully be enlightened and moved by the Old Testament as we have been.